Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jeanette Vizcaya. I'm part of the team that is running the Help Center for the 5th Judicial District. Thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate it. So just a little bit about our location. We're in the Onondaga County Courthouse on the 5th floor in the law library. So the law librarians are on one side and then we're on the opposite side. We're open every single day except for weekends and court holidays from 8:30 till about 4:15 in the afternoon. So just as the judge mentioned before, we're in a soft opening, meaning that we're not like really aggressively promoting yet because we are already so busy. We're not yet fully staffed. We're still getting a few more staff members. And then once they come in, we have to get them up to speed and everything like that. And also we're going to be undergoing a renovation in the near future as well. So it's going to be kind of in a disarray for a little bit of time during the renovation. So despite the fact that we're in a soft opening, like I said, we've since January of this year, we've helped over 650 people already. And that's just with the 3 of us. So the Help Center is overseen by Sandra Saborin, who is the law clerk and general counsel to Administrative Judge Deborah Karalunas. So everything goes through her as far as when we do forms and instruction packets. She vets everything and makes sure everything is good to go. So right now there's 3 of us. So there's myself. My background is I was a court clerk for Onondaga County Supreme Court. And then we have Amarina, whose background is, she was a resource coordinator for IDB Court in Tompkins County. And then Eric has a paralegal background. So we all have some legal background. We also work a lot in collaboration with the law library staff. So they're on the opposite side. So there's a lot of crossover between the two. So we'll, go over to them and they'll come over to us and we work together. Sometimes people need what we can offer and what they can offer. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. So just a little bit about help centers in the New York State Unified Court System. There are help centers in all the judicial districts. Some are in law libraries, some are not. Some have their own separate space, but this is the first one in the 5th Judicial District. And the goal for this one is that eventually this help center will support all 6 counties in the district. So most of the help centers around the state focus on one specific court. So they only do Supreme Court matters or just family court matters or just housing matters. And they might have more than one help center for their county. This help center is doing everything. So we're doing surrogates court, we're doing Supreme Court, we're doing housing issues, we're doing family court. So we see a lot of things. So today is just about Supreme Court, but we do help people with all the different matters in all the different courts. So who do we help? So we help all self-represented individuals. We do not screen for income. We will help anyone. The only people we cannot help are those that are represented by an attorney, unless, of course, if they're seeking to release that attorney. We help in person and by phone and by email. So most of our clientele comes in person right now, but I imagine once we start, promoting more, we'll be getting more phone calls as well. And then we're hoping to be able to assist people virtually in the near future as well, like via Teams in the different counties. So that's on the radar as well. So many people that are coming in for help, they've been turned away from multiple other places. They're often like really frustrated and scared and upset about their situation. So we frequently see that in addition to their legal matter, they're often struggling with other things in their lives. So whether it's, literacy issues or housing issues or mental health. So at the Help Center, we're putting together a big, community resource area. And we're trying to take that opportunity to connect people to resources that are around the community. Because often people don't even know that these resources are out there. And these resources can help them, get back on track in some areas. So things like literacy programs, refugee services, domestic violence counseling. We're trying to really stockpile a big resource area there. So common topics we see, the big ones obviously are, how do I start a lawsuit? Article 78, name changes, gender changes. We see a lot of Article 81. Uncontested divorces are a big one too. Foreclosure matters, how to vacate a default judgment. How do I ask the court to do something for me? How to file a motion or order to show cause. A lot of landlord tenant matters and how do I appeal an order as well. So, as the help center is part of the court system, help center staff must remain neutral. We can't take sides in a matter. So, and we're unable to provide any kind of legal advice. If a patron needs more in-depth research on a matter, we can walk them over to the law library, and the law librarians are really good at, getting them on Westlaw or Lexis to do their own research. But we can't do that on our side. So what can the help center staff do? So we can explain court rules and procedures. We can provide approved court forms and instructions. So we are putting together instruction packets of, how to do basic procedures. We can discuss like procedural options that may be available to a litigant. We can explain general like legal terminology and, define terms for them. We can provide copies of statutes or court rules. And then we can also provide them with contact information for like legal services or other public agencies. So the things we can't do, so we can't explain how the rules or procedures, apply to that litigant's case. So we can't say, this is what you should do because, or this is what you should do at all. We can't explain rules or procedures outside of New York State. So we've had people come in with issues in other states or federal court things. We cannot help with that. We can't tell litigants, what information to put in their forms either, or if what they put in is, the right thing to put in. We cannot fill out their forms for them either. So that can be difficult when there's literacy issues and language issues as well. But we found workarounds for those types of things. We can't tell a litigant, if they should start a case or what their chances of success will be, because we don't know. We can't advise a litigant as to which laws that are applied to their situation. We can't interpret statutes or court rules for litigants, and we cannot provide personal references to specific attorneys. So we have a lot of resources available at the help center. We have NOLO books. I don't know if you're familiar with those that people can check out and take home, and then they can bring them back, or they can just look at them at the help center. The court system has DIY programs, so do-it-yourself programs, which are really helpful. We have ones for divorce and name changes and some landlord-tenant issues. And these programs are great because they're kind of like a TurboTax. So they walk people through step by step and just ask a question, and the person, types in the answer. And at the end of it all, it will, print everything out for them on the forms that they need, including instructions of what they need to do next. So we try to direct people to those as much as we can when it applies. We have a lot of blank forms and instruction packets. We are still gathering forms. So I appreciate your comment about the, subpoenas. As we get stuff, it has to get approved and then we can start using it. So as we see things come up, we're developing forms for people that they can use. And then there's the court help website too, which has a lot of information for people that we direct people to as well. So here's a listing of some of the forms that we have. I mean, I'm not going to go through them all, but like I said, we're still in the building stages of the help center. We've only really been going since January, so we're still, you know, gathering things and developing information packets and things like that. And we try to adapt the forms to make them more user friendly. So, you know, with little instructions, you know, near them so that people know what to put in the blank spaces. So finally, the Volunteer Lawyer Project clinics have been a tremendous assistance to the Help Center and to self-represented litigants. You know, as I mentioned, as Help Center staff cannot give legal advice, we often refer people to those clinics so that they can get the answers and the direction that they need. And the new Supreme Civil Clinic has been a huge, huge help and has filled a tremendous gap that was there. So, like I said, we've been very busy on Wednesday mornings. So thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pauline Smith. I am a program manager here at Volunteer Lawyers Project. And one of the programs that I'm helping manage at this time is our cooperation with the Help Center. The Help Center is obviously a newer initiative, and the way that volunteer attorneys like yourself can assist is really in filling that gap of things that, as she described, some of the things that clerks can't do, you can do as a volunteer attorney. And even if you're within the Help Center as an independent volunteer through Volunteer Lawyers Project, that allows you to do certain things that they cannot do directly at the Help Center. So what I'm going to do is just talk briefly about what Help Centers are like. Myself, I actually worked previously at Volunteer Lawyers Project in Rochester. I actually helped start the Help Center there, and then I worked at it for 7 years. So I have a lot of experience with Help Centers and how they operate and how they function in the community. And I can tell you, actually, just from personal experience, that Help Centers make a difference. Help Centers do one thing that, you know, across the board is missing in a lot of communities is access to justice. Okay, it is very difficult as a self-represented litigant to walk into the courthouse over there and get the form you need, fill it out completely by yourself, and then turn it in, make sure you have the right number of copies, that you have all the things that need to go with it. It is very difficult for folks to do that, especially a lot of folks who cannot afford an attorney. And as we know, you know, granted, legal fees are expensive, and a lot of people cannot afford that. And so what we do is fill in that gap using folks like yourself to help volunteer. So what happens, you know, what do the clients that come in to our clinic look like? Well, generally, there was a study done in New York City, because of course it was in New York City, by the Office of the Deputy Administrative Judge. And it showed a couple of key facts that we found to be similar in other help centers. The majority of the people that come into the help center are low income folks who otherwise can't afford an attorney. They haven't consulted with an attorney previously on their case. They are either starting a case, they are a defendant in a case, or they are down the road in a case and get to a point in the case where they can no longer, you know, figure out what their path forward is. And so, you know, we're not taking clients away from attorneys in the community, because these are folks who would just continue doing this without an attorney. And so really what we're providing is that access to justice piece, that ability to use the courts the same way as if they had the financial resources to move forward. 83% of the survey respondents in this survey in New York City were African-American, Hispanic, or Asian. And we do see that a lot in these clinics. We see a lot of people who are members of marginalized communities, and a lot of people who are members of minoritized communities will come into the help center. They feel comfortable with the help center, especially, you know, folks like Jeanette. They learn the staff's names. They learn who the court staff are, and they feel comfortable with us. So as a volunteer attorney, that's kind of one of the things that you can help provide, is that comfort level. Show them that the courts are not as intimidating as they have previously believed. Survey respondents generally had less education and lower income than New York City residents as a whole. We have some clients that come into the help center, and as Jeanette will tell you, they are not literate. They can't read and write. Some of them can read, they can't write. Some of them can write, they can't read. And the court staff cannot sit down with them and actually write in the forms what they want to put into those forms. They cannot transcribe into the forms what those folks need. So one of the things we can do as volunteers is fill that gap, is help them with that, because there's no other resource for them. Unlike, Spanish translation or translators, that they don't have somebody, a transcriptionist on staff at the court to be able to do things like that. So this is a gap that we can help fill. The percentage of self-represented litigants who felt they could not afford an attorney was pretty much across the board between like the $15,000 and $45,000 income range for the respondents, which means that, it's not a problem of just low income, it might be middle income too. And so, we can help fill that gap there as well. And most of the self-represented litigants, what they really want is they want someone to give them the forms that they need. Like, they'll explain their issue, you give them the forms, explain to them how to fill out the forms. If they can fill out the forms themselves and you feel that they can do that, then we send them with the forms to fill them out themselves. They can always bring them back to the next week's clinic for a review. But they really want those to be available, and they want people to explain procedures to them. Some of them also want the forms available in multiple languages. And that's something we don't have at this time. But we do have some of the instructions, I believe, in other languages, but it's, the court documents are almost across the board in English. So that for some folks is a very difficult bridge. And what we do is we actually provide you with a translator, what is it called? It's our Voyance is our online or phone translation service. And so you as a volunteer can actually call this service and have a translator in almost any language on demand. So if you have a client that comes in and they speak a language that you are not comfortable with, or a language that, no one in the court is comfortable with, we can call someone and have them translate into that language and then translate back to that folks. So we definitely have those resources available for you. Right. So why does the Court Help Center need volunteer attorneys? Why can't we just do this? As she described, the reason why is the court staff themselves cannot give legal advice. As well, we can provide a service to the community by training folks like you to handle unrepresented litigants in areas of the law that are varied, diverse. You all are probably from diverse areas of the law. Well, having access to all those different practice areas and having folks that we can train in other practice areas is a great community resource. If you have somebody on the staff who knows one area of the law, right? That's one area of the law that person knows. But we have 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 attorneys we can access and have them go push into the courts and bring their expertise to the court. As an attorney, you can do things that non-attorneys can do, like assess the weakness of a case. You can assess the strengths of a case. You can provide a course of action for the client. You could tell the client what is venue, who is the defendant, who is the plaintiff. People like at the court staff can only say, this is what a defendant is theoretically, and let that person self-identify which position they're in. We can tell them that as volunteer attorneys. And it's also a way to kind of maintain the impartiality of the court while pushing out this access to justice idea to the community. The court provides us the space to do it. We are providing the volunteers like yourself, and hopefully the relationship will continue to, help people really get that access to the court information. So how do you, as an attorney, how do you benefit from volunteering at the court? We'd like to make this a positive experience for you as well. We try to make this a positive experience for you by having support staff there. I'm usually there every Wednesday morning when the clinic is there. The court staff is also there. So we have a lot of people there to support you and make this a good experience for you. It makes you feel good to help people in the community who are going through the process pro se. If you can explain something to them and they go off with whatever it is you explain to them, a lot of people are very grateful for that information or advice that you had given them. We hear really good things about the interaction with that volunteer attorney. We train attorneys like yourself in a variety of practice areas. If you have a practice area you want to dip into, we probably have someone who can help you, shadow you to train you in that area of the law. So this is a good thing for especially new attorneys, that mentoring is very key to getting that experience in a different area of the law. You can get CLE credits for some aspects of volunteering with VLP, and you can get a deeper connection to the community. Sometimes one of the things that happens as an attorney is you forget what's going on in the community. I myself, even working, in legal services, sometimes we have a disconnect from what the actual challenges are out there. And it helps to really connect with the community. And this is a great way to do it. You see people who are needy, you see the needs that are in the community. Sometimes you see a legal opportunity that you didn't know existed. I've seen some attorneys who turn their help center experience into a practice area and a new area of law that they now practice in that they didn't even know was so needed in the communities. You're going to start seeing gaps. There are gaps in our community. And where those gaps exist is sometimes an opportunity for an attorney. So, it helps you from that perspective as well. And it also makes us kind of, from my perspective, it makes me a more compassionate person to go there and see what people are experiencing in the community and know that I can help them with that. All right, so one of the other things that we talk about is there are other resources in the community for folks. When you come over to our help center, we give you a book of information about things that are available in the community. And one of the things that's available is our Volunteer Lawyers Project clinics. We have clinics in multiple different practice areas throughout the communities. Almost every day of the week, there's a VLP community clinic going on somewhere. We have our family court clinic that runs on Wednesdays in the same building. We have a surrogate court clinic that also runs on Wednesdays in that same building. We have a debt clinic that runs sometimes in the evenings at the law or at the libraries in the community. We have a tenants' right clinic that the dates vary and the times vary, and it's all on our website. We also have the Supreme and Civil clinic. So what we do is we give you the advice that if you don't specifically know the information that client needs, you can send them to one of our clinics. So it's not that you need to go in there and know everything that minute. You can forward that person on to one of our specialized clinics. And then if you decide you want to volunteer at one of those clinics, you can do that as well. So it's a good experience to get your kind of feet wet in the volunteering community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Diane Helbig. And then if you have any questions at all, if you want more information on the Help Center, please feel free to email me and I can give you that information. Okay. Thank you.
As she said, I am Diane Helbig. I am the Chief Clerk of Supreme and County Courts. Mary Monashevsky, back in the corner there, is my Deputy Chief Clerk. I'm going to repeat a lot of what Jeanette said because it's all the same for us. You've heard it a million times. We can't give legal advice, and you'll probably hear me say it again. But we have offices in both the old courthouse where the clinic is, and we have offices in the criminal courts building as well. That is where our clerical assistants, I like to say they're the front office. They're the front line. They are the first people that will meet anybody in the community that is a pro se litigant coming in asking for help. Let's see here. For Supreme Court matters, they work on criminal matters, county court matters, and Supreme. But for Supreme Court matters, the most common inquiries we receive are questions about divorces, mostly uncontested divorces. We have this huge packet. I was going to make copies for everyone, but I didn't want to kill a tree. It's humongous. How intimidating is this if you're a pro se litigant and you come and pick this up? I mean, it's overwhelming, and I understand that. That's why we're so thankful that we're getting help here. We also have packets at our counter for name changes. These are for sex designation changes. These are for adults, and we also have them for infants. Same thing. It's very intimidating to pick this up and you're like, what do I do with this now, right? So we also have guardianship flyers for working on Article 81 matters. And we also have our poor person waivers. This, we call it a fee waiver now because who wants to be called a poor person anymore, right? So this we give out as well. But as Jeanette was saying, we're not allowed to help people fill these out. So what do? In the past, we haven't been able to do a lot, but now I would refer people to the law library. And we would refer people to, we have a list of contacts with the Volunteer Lawyers Project is on here. So we would hand this out, but people are still lost. So now we are so thankful that we have our help center to work with this. We also have blank RJIs. Again, how do you fill this out? That's what they always ask us. We can't tell them, but now we can get them in the right direction. So we've been referring a lot of people to the clinics. That's why you've all been very busy over there. Also, we have a website, and that's, how do I get this to go to the next slide? This is our picture of our website. I didn't want to get into a lot of it about it. There's so much on here. There's criminal, there's evictions. You'll see though, there are divorces. There are name changes. It walks you through filing certain things. We give this form to everybody so they know what website to go to, but not everybody has access to a computer. So, but I will go through a few of the pages on this. The divorce page, you can see it goes into the basics, uncontested divorces, if you have children in a divorce, divorce resources. And there's a whole page on uncontested divorces, how to file, it'll walk you through it. Then there's also a whole page on name changes and sex designation changes. It has all the forms you would need and how to fill it out and what you need. Birth certificates, right, Judge Vogel? So that is a good overview of our webpage. We also have a flyer on how to e-file for a pro se litigant. Most of our cases are now headed that direction, but we do still accept paper filings, as Malcolm, I'm sure we'll get into with that. And we also have a nice handout on how to file, how to start a case. A few of the needs we still are working on is how to file an Article 78. We're hoping to put together a packet on that, but we'll get there. Yeah. Let's see if I have anything else. So when an unrepresented person begins to ask us questions in our office, oftentimes we can't answer it and we have to explain to them that, again, we are prohibited from giving legal advice. So they feel like they've hit a brick wall and we get a lot of upset people. And that's why we're referring them to the help center now. And Jeanette's going to be the resource that they can count on and hopefully get them in the right direction, right? The last thing I wanted to say is, so as you see, our office acts as somewhat of a traffic director. We're telling people where to go most of the day and how people other than us can help them with their issues. All cases are not even filed in our office. They're filed in the Onondaga County Clerk's office. So we're directing them there. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Malcolm and Emily. Okay. Any questions for me? I know it's a lot, but no. Okay. Thank you.
Hello. So my name is Emily S.E. Bersani. I'm the new county clerk. I started on January 1st. And just want to reiterate, as you already know, so being the clerk of the court, despite receiving many inquiries on a regular basis regarding legal matters, we cannot answer anything either. So I'm very excited about the help desk. We at the county clerk's office, I feel like everybody just thinks that we know everything about the county and about the courts. So we receive a lot of inquiries on a regular basis. Malcolm is my principal deputy and he is an expert and knows everything. So he'll take it away from here, but I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself. 6 months in, so trying to learn as much as I can and love this opportunity. So yep, that's it. Take it away, Malcolm.
Hi, my name's Malcolm Merrill. I'm a deputy clerk in the county clerk's office. And first of all, I'd like to say the county clerk's office, we're the first people that pro se litigants see face to face and when they're trying to start their action. And just like Jeanette and Diane have stated, you know, it's intimidating and they need help. And we try to, but it's a lot of hand holding. You just say you need to fill this out. And they this would need us push in the right direction. So I'm deeply appreciative that we have these resources now coming to us that we can put them up there so they can get the right papers in their hands. It's time consuming with the pro se litigants. We experience a lot of issues with them. A lot of them are just intimidated by the packet. The divorce packet, very intimidating. Some of them will come in and they'll fill out the entire packet, or they've already served the defendant and kind of say, yeah, you need to, you have to do something over again. You need to look at those instructions. A lot of them too, they just getting it started. Some of them get them started. Another issue they face is when documents are returned to them by the court. And to the court's credit, the court is always excellent about getting a very itemized rejection letter saying A, B, and C need to be done. And they're just not getting it, need some guidance. So as much as we can, we try to do some hand holding. It's time consuming, and again, just like the Supreme Court clerk, we have to tell them we can't give you legal advice. We're not competent to do that. But most of our pro se litigants are doing name changes, which have become easier and easier because of the packets. Uncontested divorces, that's probably all of our paper filings in divorces. They're all pro se litigants. We've been a mandatory e-filing county since 2014. So a lot of these cases that we have a pro se litigants coming in to ask about consumer credit collection. They come in and want to file an answer. Lucky enough, we're able to push it, go to the court's website, direct them to the court's website, and they can get an answer in. But it's tough, but it's they'll fill out the answer, but they won't check anything, or they check everything. Where if they could have 15 minutes of your time to see if they have a good defense, or even to reach out to the creditor to work out a settlement. Our most challenging part with pro se litigants is when they actually get into complex litigation, like a medical malpractice case, which Justice Fogel and I've had several cases have been very challenging, to say the least, and that just need an attorney's attention. With the electronic filing, that we face the same issues with the paper pro se litigants, and then throw in the complexity of e-filing for the first time. We've had a filer that he was very good at uploading stuff lots of times that required the court's intervention. But that's really what where we see it the most, the pro se litigants coming in looking for help. And I would like to add to that, it's time consuming and sometimes frustrating can be for them in that. We also, the county clerk's office, we also see them at the end of it. So person started the divorce, and when they get there with that signed decree and they file and they said, you tell them you're divorced, you're done. They're really grateful. So it really is not all struggle. It's very rewarding for us sometimes.
Can you talk a little bit more about e-filing? I was under the impression that pro se litigants were exempt from e-filing.
Yes, pro se litigants by law are automatically exempt. So that's why we get them all in paper. If they're a defendant in it, they're automatically exempt. And in our office, if a pro se litigant comes in and files an answer, we'll accept it in paper and we will upload it to the NICEF case. We're not going to maintain two files. And I always tell them when they file an answer, make sure you serve this on the plaintiff's attorney. Effectively by me uploading it, they've been notified. And we do occasionally have some pro se litigants that do choose to e-file. It can be difficult. Sometimes I've had them taking a picture of individual pages and uploading them, but I've also had some pro se litigants do their divorces, and I had one that she did it perfectly. I don't know what her background was. She did it so good. When that divorce decree came through, I sent her certified copies on the house. She did such a great job.
And what if a pro se litigant wants to correspond with the court?
Um,
Should they do that?
Well, in e-filing, there is a document type letter correspondence to court, and many of the judges do want stuff, say, submitted via NICEF, and we'll upload that. And we also have I use it all the time with NICEF, which is wonderful for reaching out, because there's a comments tab. So I could, if you're an attorney are in there and something's missing, I can send you a note saying, hey, upload this. Everything is documented. The courts have a court notice function. I wish I had it, but it's basically stationary. The judges use it all the time. Works out very well. But that's all I had to say. And I would really encourage you to give it a try. And we're accessible too. If if something's not working, or if you think something's better, like with the subpoenas, reach out to us, because we've had the same problem with litigants coming to look for an income execution. We used to refer them to the city marshal, and then we got a call from the sheriff's department that it was an old form with the wrong calculation. And we don't know where to send them anymore. We have a link on our website to Bloomberg, but of course we can't say, use this form or that form. And I know we're here for discussing court filings, but on the county clerk side, we face the same issue with pro se litigants with the real estate. They'll come in and want to do a quick claim deed, and they've heard from this mysterious person that they or somebody told me, just come in and file this and you're all set. And then we have to break the news to them that there's some additional forms you need to fill out. You have the wrong acknowledgement, you need the legal description. So it's the same issue. A lot of them just need some help. And I really hope you would follow up with this and give it a try. That's all I had for you. If you have any questions, I'll pass it on.
Okay. All right, so I am here talking about common issues and problems I see when it gets to me after it's been filed. And one of, I think, the important things as my job is, my goal is to make sure that their packet is complete, they're heard, they have an opportunity to get in front of me if they need to get in front of me. I don't want to outright deny something for a technicality. So my chambers and many of the other chambers go above and beyond to make sure we get all the information that we need so we can fully evaluate what is in front of us and assist. Can't provide legal advice, obviously. Can't do it. But at least we can reach out and say, you are missing X, Y, and Z. Please provide this. If you don't provide it within the next 40 days, 45 days, unfortunately, we're going to have to dismiss your application. And they're very responsive. They will reach, the pro se individual who's reaching out to us will call us and ask more questions regarding what we did. If they submitted some of the stuff, but not all of this stuff, we will reach back out to them and follow up with them again. I tend to go a little off script, so I'm going to go off script a little bit and then I'll circle with PowerPoint. But one of the things I think is very important for chambers to have is contact information, the best contact information for the individual. Sometimes I just get an address and then, it takes more time. So if you're working with them, if they have an email address, make sure I have a cell phone number or an alternate number and then their address, obviously, because I think sometimes the quickest way to get some of these things answered is via the telephone or just an email that then they're very responsive when they get emails. And when Karen, my secretary, sends an email, she has multiple correspondence back and forth with them before it even gets to me and getting the information I need. So it's just a great way. And when they're filling out that RJI, they just put an address and that's it. Just make sure we have a phone number, an email address if they have it. Some people don't have email addresses and that's fine, but at least make sure a phone number is always on there. So we have a way to get in touch with them because I don't want to leave their application stagnant. I want to make sure it gets to them. I want to make sure that I can answer the questions that I need answered to evaluate their application. So that's just an overview of our courts. I'm sure all of you know the overview of our courts, so I will not go through all of it. Typical proceedings that I see involving pro se litigants is the name and gender designation changes, Article 78 petitions and special proceedings, poor person applications, that's what the statute calls it, unfortunately, but it's the fee waiver application, uncontested matrimonials. I get a bunch of pro se habeas corpus, writ of mandamus filings, vacating a default judgment that they've received in the mail. And I don't get a ton, but there are the civil actions that are commenced by pro se litigants. So kind of taken each one and highlighted some of the issues with it. And in doing this, I also reached out to all our judges in the 5th Judicial District to provide their input. And we all across the board have the same issues. Failing to attach the proof of birth. And depending on if they're a US citizen and non-US citizen, there's differing things we need to have, or if you were born outside of New York State. The The big thing is a lot of times I get a photocopy of a birth certificate, which doesn't work, and I don't have the certification, you know, because the certification's on the back and they only send me the front. So my practice typically is it looks valid to me when they come and pick it up because it's always paper generally. I just have them bring a copy of the birth certificate with them. So it's just a double verification for me. I flip the back and I'm like, okay, it is certified. And then they get their order. And we provide them with instructions. It's like, go down to the second floor. This is where you file it. And Karen will do that when she provides all of that to them. This is a big one with children, infant ones. We don't have the proper consent from the non-petitioning parent, or they're not providing notice. There obviously is another parent that needs to be on notice of it. And a lot of times it's just turned in and they haven't provided the notice. There's a host of reasons that there may not be the necessary notice but that is a thing that in filling out these applications, we need to make sure. If you cannot obtain the consent, our court system has a form that provides the notice that is required for them to go to. In the instances where I don't have the consent signed off on by the non-petitioning parent, I will schedule a return date and give them an opportunity. I give them a deadline in which to be heard. We send a letter with the notice that they are required to serve. And if I don't hear anything, then they come in, we hear the application, and it typically gets granted. And another one, if the child's over 14 and is changing their name or their gender, they have to consent to it. I think a lot of people don't recognize that needs to be done, but on that same form, and do you have a name change application? Yes. So on page 3 of 4, no, 4 of 4, there is, this is where the parents' consent, the non-petitioning parents' consent is, and then it's the minor consent. Sometimes the petitioning parent signs in that place as well. Sometimes we don't have the minor sign off. So it's just making sure that all the pieces and all the portions of the form that need to be signed off on are signed off. And you know, it's easy for us to fix it, but I think with your help, if we get a full packet, it is quicker for them. They get the answer, they get the order faster instead of, you know, a lot of times I have ones that have hung around for 6 months because there's a delay in getting back to us, or they've moved and I don't have the proper address for them anymore. So, you know, as full as the packet can be to us, the quicker they're going to get their order and the quicker they're going to get the relief that they want. Article 78 and special proceedings. I cannot wait for our little packet to be complete because that will be huge. Some of the big things we see is the petition is filed without a notice of petition or an order to show cause. So it's just an affidavit essentially that is filed with nothing more. So unfortunately in the clerk arena, that doesn't trigger anything. It's just a filing. So it doesn't get a return date, at least with an order to show cause. The judge that it's assigned to gets to pick the return date that's necessary. So we really need to make sure the notices are attached to it, or they're filing it as an order to show cause if they need to. And then it's a failure to how they properly serve the petition and provide the appropriate affidavit of service, showing that that was actually done. A lot of times we have them and we're reaching out and it's like, okay, but do you have the affidavit of service? Well, what's an affidavit of service? I can't tell you that. They're on our website. You can take a look. What do I need to do with that? We'll just file it, or at least send it to Chambers once you've done it. And a lot of times it's our first appearance, they're coming in and they're telling me they served and I still don't have that form. So, you adjourn it out, or if it hasn't been served, we adjourn it out. So that's a big one, serving. Not knowing the standard of what really needs to be met, and I think that is where you're going to be useful on helping them and assisting them to help them understand whether or not they really might have some action that they can obtain relief from the court. And, not knowing the forms to file, that kind of goes with the notice of petition or order to show cause. Just really not understanding what needs to be filed with it. It's not just the petition, it's the notice that goes along with the petition. And then if they need any further affidavits or affidavits of service. And then our poor person applications that we have, I see more often than not, all the questions aren't answered. The forms are very self-explanatory, and there's just certain portions of it that are skipped. There's no answer. And a lot of times we're reaching out to just say, you failed to answer question 4 and 5. Please provide a response. I don't have them redo the whole thing. If they respond in an email to me, I'll accept that. They are pro se. I want to give them every possible benefit I can give to them. And if they have answered it in the email or in my inquiry, then I will take that instead of having them amend their petition. And, when we get the orders, if that application is accompanying a lawsuit, they don't really know what to do with my order once they've received it, whether I've granted it, whether I've denied it, or whether I've granted it for some type of reduced fee. They just don't know what happens next. And then what do they need to do with the underlying application that I've granted the relief, the fee waiver for them, or at least how do they go about paying the fee if it's a reduced fee, or if the application's denied, they can still commence it by filing the full fee if need be. And within 120 days, if I don't have that filing, it's deemed dismissed. There's not much I can do, and it's and something that does not connect for the two of them. The service provision does not really match the fee, the payment fee. So it's not 100, you don't get to serve it 120 days from my order. It's 120 days from your filing if you want to properly commence it. So that is one of the issues that we encounter a lot. Uncontested mats. There is never, I don't think I've ever had a complete application. There are constantly missing forms. They don't know that they need certain forms, certain certifications. They don't address custody and child support appropriately in the application. A great avenue we have for those, with a simple form, it's just correcting the form and sending it along. But if there's bigger issues that, there's certain marital property that hasn't been distributed, or they haven't dealt with custody or child support in the right way, we will refer those to the matrimonial, and our CAR will have a preliminary conference with them, go through some of the things we need, get that information. That's sometimes the easiest, quickest way, rather than doing a whole bunch of back and forth. If we can get the two parties in a room with our CAR, she can get the information that she needs to get. And sometimes it ends up with putting a stipulation on the record and then just transferring it back to me to file the necessary judgment and finding of facts with respect to that. But the packet's huge. Of course, they're going to miss something, and they're not realizing that that one might be relevant for them. So any help with those packets? I mean, ideally we could streamline some of the packets, but we can't. But we're stuck with the packet we have.
Those come from Albany.
Yes,
So everybody's
yes.
aware it's not a local.
We can't modify them. We can't change any forms. Those are standard forms across the state. So that's where we are. And just some general issues. I thought I would leave you with some general issues. I said that already, not knowing where to file the order once it's returned to them by the court. This has become a bigger thing recently. I have a lot of attorneys withdrawing as counsel, and then we put an automatic stay in place. And after that 30 days, that person who's now deemed pro se does not know what step to take next. I always in my orders in which I relieve someone, I will also schedule a conference so they have notice of what their next appearance, and typically that's been useful because they've come in and then we've kind of set forth a new discovery schedule. If they want more time to find an attorney, we're able to do that. And I always get contact information from the attorney, just so we have it at the time that I'm relieving them. Because if for some reason that pro se person doesn't show up at the conference I scheduled, I don't at least have the opportunity to call them and let them know they've missed an appearance, maybe get a new date so they can participate. Understanding NYSEF, the filing, I have a lot of pro se individuals that do use NYSEF and they file on their own, their email address is in there and they do a great job. Others spend a lot of time down at the clerk's office and things get filed that way. So just if, you know, in your capacity, if you can help them understand what it is, and if they do get it, if they do consent to the NYSEF, e-filing, just, they may get notice, check your email, because I don't know, not every, we check our emails all the time, I think by nature, but not everyone does that. So just if they get a notice, we want to make sure they get notice of it. And I already talked about the failure to provide contact information on the RJI. That is huge because it's so useful. I want to be able to talk to them if we need to talk to them and get further information. So that's my little summary of the issues that I've encountered. So I don't know if you have any questions about any of that. I don't know how we want to do that.
That we are entering into the second hour or so, and we're running on good time, so I would like to do a break, but before we go off for a break,
Okay.
if you do have questions, well, we have the panel right in front of us. Does anybody have any questions? The last half is gonna be, so, yeah.
I have a question. We work with the public administrator's office and we have a lot of cases where there's an attorney and then there's also pro se people. And we find that, when the attorney, maybe for a creditor or whatever, files papers, that the pro se person is not getting noticed. Now, we know to send them a copy in the mail or a copy by email or whatever, but mechanically in the system, how, I understand that get email addresses or whatever, but how do they get notice if some attorney is filing something and there's a pro se litigant? Is it up to the attorney to make sure? I mean, we do it, but I don't know that everybody does it.
Well, it is. If they are sending something to the court, their job is to make sure everyone is provided notice of what they have filed. And if you have a pro se person, and you maybe don't have an email address or they're not on NYSEF, they have to send it to the address they have on file. That happens more often than not, especially with like default motions where people are seeking default. I always make sure they're providing notice and sending it on and giving them the return date for them. You know, for whatever reason, something may have happened that you didn't receive the summons and complaint. But at least this is my additional chance to see what happened. And if it's a debt situation, more often than not, when they receive the motion for default, you're able to have a conversation with everyone in the room and they settle it. They enter into some kind of payment plan, but it's really on the attorney. And if it's not done, I always remind the attorney.
Because we have circumstance, I can think of a few files where when I get something in, I automatically email it to the pro se people because I know that the creditor attorney didn't show it. And I think everybody thinks it's by some miracle that it showed up at the pro se person, inbox, but it's really us who are doing it.
I know those creditor attorneys have, they like to follow some different rules and there's different parameters. They can't do a ton of, because I'll always reach out to the individual who owes the debt and they're like, well, we can't call them. We can't call them. We can't reach out to them. And I'm like, well, okay, I can. Let's have a chat. Let's all come in and we'll chat about it. So I know they do have certain parameters. So I don't know if depending on what point in time that is, they may not have to provide notice. I always,
45 days
so
that these pro se people are not getting back.
so
Okay.
yeah.
Actually, how often do pro se litigants not know what their own service requirements are? I mean, you know, they'll file something in court, but they may not be aware of who else needs to get it. I don't know how frequently that.
I think typically service is one of those things that is confusing to an individual who is handling representation on themselves. And it's, sometimes, I'm gonna use a med mal I have, for example, right? We have 5 other defendants in the case, and they are now pro se. And it's an e-file situation and she's new to it and we're trying to make sure everything is all squared away. We just had a conference with her last week and she's like, I need a little more time to find an attorney. But she was very much, I don't know what to do if I have to send a letter or an email. So, she was provided with everyone's email addresses at the conference. She has my law clerk's email address, so she has that. So even though she may not be e-filing, she has a way to be able to communicate with everyone. And it was, you have 5 people, there's 5 individuals, 5 counsel that need to be communicated with respect to this. So it's, they just need to be aware, and they're not always, but.
And then kind of related, well, really, what about statutes of limitation? Because frequently they just assume, okay, I can do this now. Are the volunteers allowed to say, oh, you better hurry because you only have 3 months, or that's different? Maybe on the website, the court's self-help website, they can get some info.
Well, that's providing legal advice from us. I mean, you as volunteers are in a little bit of a different situation, correct? Right?
I don't see any issue with it.
Like you are
Yeah.
there to provide that assistance to them. Like if someone, more often than not, I had a pro se individual who filed, how many did we have?
Oh, dear.
87 applications that all went to me. And a lot of them were untimely. And you're dealing with applications, you're waiting for someone to make a motion to dismiss because it's untimely. But I mean, it's accepted. I mean, Malcolm's not going to reject it. It's accepted. And then, the question is, does he properly serve it? If they properly serve, then it's ultimately the defendant makes the argument that they need to make. But you're in a better situation because you could have had a conversation and said, hey, this happened in 2011. It's now 2024. So there is no possible claim that might exist here. Maybe there was some, I'll use MedMal again, maybe continuous treatment. Maybe I'm wrong that there could have been some continuous treatment, but that's something for you to assist with, evaluating with them. We obviously just accept the filing. I can't write them a letter and say, hey, I'm not going to evaluate this because you're untimely. I have to wait for the defendant to make some application to me. But I think that's what's wonderful about this. You can actually help them understand what they have, how they need to do it, if they have something. And I think that's why the partnership is wonderful. And the goal is for them to get in front of us with what they need relief for and just balance what it is. And maybe you can help them understand what it is they're really seeking. Because I think a lot of times they don't know what they need or what they want. And more often than not, it's scary for them. When I was in matrimonial, I had a pro se individual not show up for the entire proceeding until he received a letter from me kind of following up on something. And I simply asked him, I'm like, why did you never appear? And he's like, I was just too scared. I just didn't know what to expect. And I'm like, well, is it scary? He's like, no, it's not scary. You're actually really nice. And I'm like, all right, well, will you come back next time? He's like, I will be back, Judge. I will be back. And it's a missed opportunity because he wasn't participating in what he needed to participate in for the fear. So if we can eliminate that fear and that idea that, the courtroom is a scary, scary thing, I mean, that's my job. That's what we're supposed to do. And like with your help, I think it's gonna be huge. It's gonna be, it'll help us run smoother and it'll get them where they need to be and, hopefully relief that they need to get. So, you're welcome.
If a pro se defendant files an order to show cause, whose responsibility is it to notify them that order has been signed? And if they have to come back and pick up the code? Is that something that the court works do? Is it at the court's office?
Well, at the point where the order to show cause is signed off on, it's in chambers at that point. So we would reach out to them and say, I have this order to show cause, because they have to file it. They have to file and serve it. I have certain instructions that certain parameters in my order to show, what I signed off on. So we will let them know, give them a call and say, hey, you're all set. We've signed off on the order. You can pick it up. I'm located in room 410. So that's how we handle it.
If the client is not receiving that call, the thief would find rights, give them the chamber number and they call there and find out what's going on.
Of course.
That was that's fine.
And it's hard because I don't, maybe this is a question for Malcolm. How do they get notice of which judge it's been assigned to if it's a paper filing? Okay, so they let them.
Paper in the mail or do they get a call? How do they?
They usually get an email if they give us their email address. Sometimes we mail, it depends the information, and if we have it on the RJI.
If they don't file an RJI, it's just no RJI.
They have to
They
file,
have to file the-
typically.
Nothing gets in our court without
Okay.
that RJI.
Got it.
So
The information they put on the RJI. or-
hugely important. Anything else? I'm sure you want your break now. You're done.
Well, with that, we'll go into just a couple minutes break. We'll return back in about 5 minutes at 1:20. So go ahead and stretch a little bit, grab some more food, and then we'll wrap up with that.
Yeah. I don't. Oh, okay, pause. All right. Yeah.
It was interesting. You didn't see this. My computer started right as we saw it. It was so funny. I had to reopen it.
Oh, no.
No, it's great. Thank you. Well, what's super helpful is having a face. It makes it so much more, yeah, exactly. But it's safe for everybody who's thinking about volunteering or even doing anything with that course. For me, I know it's, seeing the face, it makes such a difference, so we know that who we're reaching out to and everything.
Yeah.
It's helpful. Yeah, so it's great that you all want to come and say something. Yeah, so thank you for that.
So, of course, something that kind of made me nervous.
We are running pretty quick. So I'm trying to I'm trying to so that we're, not too short on the seal.
Nobel goes up,
You
and
know,
you get 30 minutes with them, something like that. I was a litigator
Yeah.
for 41 years before I retired, okay? And I don't think I ever gave advice to anybody based on 15 minutes of talking to them. And I can see very often in a situation where I think you might have something here, but I just can't evaluate, okay? And so, I mean, I can say, you can check and see if you could qualify for assistance services or HISCAC, and I encourage you to do that. I just can't answer your question. And that's.
It's
frustrating.
difficult when we only have this tiny little window right now, and this is the thing, we're gonna make changes in ours, and what that's gonna do is give people more time. It's gonna keep people like yourself, we're gonna have more time with the facts, because we're gonna have more time. Okay, right now, what you can do is give them that reference sheet we have with all the various services, say,
Yeah.
look, well, based on what you're trying to do right now, I think that this is possibly help you.
Yeah, and that's what I did, you know,
Because it's.
but it's,
Can't represent that, you know, in that 15 minutes, we can give them an idea.
yeah, it's hard for even them to tell you their story, or if they bring a bunch of papers for you to read through them all and digest it.
Well, that's the thing.
I mean,
I
that's
think
the
that
thing
again,
is that we have one thing that's like a small,
like
Yeah.
forums that are like.
and that's something I'm not.
And, you know, or provide this presentation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, narrowly down, down.
Before we get, you know, see.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to get people signed up as fast as you know, signed up. So that's why goals that we have. That's like for everything. We find ourselves in our office, even like repeating this thing. Maybe like orientation. So it's like we could just record this and then we do it. That way we don't have to keep like finding out who's available, like
And-
doing the whole, you know, right? Well, we have us all here together.
So you
like,
gotta get them started on something, say,
you know,
I think
get
you
that
can do A, B, and C, but do A, B, and C, and then come
Yeah,
back next week, 2 weeks or something like that.
And
So
like
can
the
have the
petition
and say,
we
look,
created
let's
this
point
book
here.
that literally has like building.
Send it
down.
So that
Wow.
volunteers,
Yeah,
they can have an idea of like information, but maybe. for
Okay,
some of those
but there might be like a next
that, you know,
strategy step or something after, you know, you
You know,
can't tell
it's-
somebody,
Honestly, some of it's like
particularly
just like
that short
where you're
time
taking
period,
your- but, you know,
okay, you need to do this and this and this, but then after that, you're gonna have to get a discovery, you got, you know,
That's
you
what
can only do you can only do the first step.
And that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
Is just do that first step, get them on the road, and then they can help you get them. The support step.
Yeah, yes, that's great. Yeah.
You know, our job is to-
Yeah,
This is
yeah, it absolutely does. Oh my gosh, it's so crucial to all of us.
We're gonna expand.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times. Look,
Say that.
it's one that you guys always get to, and
Like in
everything,
New
it's
Rochester, it's
well,
95
whatever,
minutes to drive.
it's defendant.
So
Right, so
they're
they
hard,
really have
turns
no
to sit down with
idea,
people that
right?
actually do them. I don't even
And
have
you're-
I see.
that time.
And
Right now,
it's
we don't
just
have that.
whatever we can do to help it all.
Kind of slowly expanding, especially if they're finishing their remodeling and everything. And it might be an opportunity for us to do things like have an entire class on matrimonial packets. So that people can come in and get that information down the road.
Yeah,
And it might
that'd be a
nice-
great idea.
Yeah, so that's something that we can look at doing it as their space gets settled and we get more visibility. You know, if you need a matrimonial costume, you know.
You know, or somebody comes in and right away you go, gee, this is an area of law I know nothing about, okay? But you need some help with this, okay? So what do? Try the next week and see if you get another attorney that knows something.
Can have them, we have clinics in the community almost every day of the week, and some of our clinics are topic specific. We have circuit sport, we have debt clinics, we have family law clinics right downstairs in the, that same building, the same time. We have clinics on, you know, we have a general talk to an attorney clinic, like where they can just go in and talk to a different attorney at the law or one of the libraries at night.
Yeah.
And
I've
that
done
person might have more time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we have a debt clinic, like people want to file a pro se answer, we have a clinic where we can do that. And so we can give them more time sometimes at those other clinics. This clinic is kind of a triage situation sometimes,
Yeah.
right now. Eventually it might be more, but right now it's very triage. So we can't give them like a full 45-minute representation experience, you know, but what we can give them is that 15 minutes, that 20 minutes, whatever they need to kind of get it. And sometimes people just want to tell you the life stories and like, stories. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
so we were talking about like sometimes the 15-minute window is just not enough
Yeah.
to get where we need to go. I'm like, well, sometimes what we need to do is have it narrowed down before they get to him. Like, they specifically need information on an RJI. You know, like rather than 20-minute life story, let's get down to the nitty gritty
Yeah.
and then get them.
Yeah, but I mean, somebody may walk in with a stack of papers
Yeah.
like this,
We
okay?
need to like.
I can't even read through it in 15 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
Because we've referred them, because we can't, if it's something as simple as an RJI, we've got that. you
Right.
know, But it's the more complex things that we're usually sending people to the clinic for.
Right.
Sometimes people find out about the clinic and they do come in for something simple, but it's usually like they're being referred either from the clerk's desk or from us. And, you know, we'll say, come back on Wednesday because then you can talk to the attorney.
And this might be where it's more helpful when we have expanded hours to have
Yes.
more time for them to spend with a client.
Yeah.
Like I was telling him, you know, Rochester, it's 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
And so, you know, somebody can sit down with a person and go through the pro se packet. They can actually help them fill it out. We have, you know, we had paralegals that help do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that helps them because you can do that stuff when you have all that time. With this 2-hour block, like we, you know, we can and we're seeing 6, 7 clients in a 2-hour block, so.
Yeah, and it'll be nice too, like when we have the afternoon session, so say they came in the morning, they can get the forms and stuff they need.
They come back in the afternoon. Yeah.
We do
So
that
it's
with
a-
family law people too, like we'll give them the
Yeah.
forms and then have them come back with the forms filled out, so.
Yeah.
We're working like I'm getting
I was
like,
gonna say,
you know,
is that
just
moving along?
expanded,
Yeah.
We can't-
It's just, you know, it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's, you know,
Yeah.
I'm used to
Amazing.
getting a story,
Yeah.
investigating, doing legal research, you know, it's like.
Yeah, it's-
You know,
This,
and you can't do that.
this is the emergency room of law, this is what
Yeah.
we're doing a triage, we're
Yeah.
trying to get them to like
Yeah. it's
a
okay.
thing and then get them like over to this thing, like we can't necessarily sew them up and fix the surgery right then,
Yeah.
but we can try to stop the bleeding and kind of give them something to go let down there where they can get more help. And that's why we have all those resource lists, because you can send them to one of those places.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody's having problems with a divorce, send them to legal aid, they might be able to get help there or with, in our program,
Yeah.
so, and we're always downstairs when you guys are there. So like
Okay.
if something
Okay.
complex comes up, you can call me.
Okay.
All right, and I will come right up and try to help you figure out where to send it. Or
It's
they
just,
have all
it's
the
just, you know, it's frustrating, like,
Oh, yeah.
I think I can help this, or I could help this person if I had 2 days, you know, but I, you know, but.
Have you, have you, you know, pro se represent this person, let us know, because we can probably connect you.
Yes.
In, you know, depending on the case, with them doing it for long. You know, and sometimes that happens, like attorneys just want to take it on, and, you know, they're.
They can
whatever
put
it
me
is.
on the clinic, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, you can take it on for pro se representation.
And
if you
still
want
get
to.
credit
There's no
for it,
pressure.
things like that.
You can get your
Yeah.
credits and everything.
Yeah,
There's no pressure to do it, but you can. if you'd like.
Yeah, so basically for any, basically 2 hours of pro bono service, even with an individual case, you get it out credit. Right, or as always 3 hours, you get 1.5 credit. So that's basically how it works with Sealing. So through volunteering, you can get them. That's a good question. So I heard a good point that they brought up, so I'll bring that up. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is. Oh my gosh, it is. Yeah. But we had the same thing you said. Literally the last few clinics that we've had for family court clinics have had like 20 something, 28. Way back when, years ago, where the attorney would film like 6. And I read 6 would be a lot. And now we're up to 20. We've been able to streamline it. Like as we keep going, and I imagine that will be with this, as we keep moving along, where we don't have the people showing up with a pile, that's no way we can help in 15 minutes sort of thing. Yeah. One thing I've noticed. Yeah. Yes. You know, we had talked about that, so we have done that on and off for all of our codes, especially family law, but also surrogate support and things like that, and we might be able to do that for this clinic, is actually having a student every time they are present, just to be support. Run his, history research, if they have to run to get a sort of, you know, whatever it is, they can do. Yeah, whatever, they can help do it. Yeah, yeah, that might be a good idea. Yeah, that's being brought a lot. That's great. They're like, yeah, they're gonna need that help, right? I'm not gonna turn too quickly. So. End of July. Yeah. Sometimes they say beginning of August, but end of July, it's like, so 1 more month. And then they'll be back, but everything is going really well too. And yeah, oh, thank you. But, and, Sal is doing well. So we've touched base and just really embracing the time. Yeah, so it's been good. Yeah.
Got the right title, but that doesn't
Yeah, they're talking about real estate. That's another one we get questions about, because we have a service court, but that's only for, you know, like, but the other separate ones that are not, you know, fall under that. you really do need a real estate knowledgeable. And we get a lot of that, you know, for folks that are looking for that kind of guidance too, but. There's always, there's more and more, we can just keep making clinics about, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Article 81, you know, who was it, Dave Primo or David Primo, is it David Primo, right, Family Court, yeah. He was actually at another presentation we had about SIJSs, like the juvenile, it's an immigration juvenile filing. And he was saying, oh, I'm really, I'm getting very well versed in Article 81. I don't know why he is, but, and I clicked with me, because we certainly get that question a lot too, because we do the surrogates court, and so for like Article 17, 17A, but we can't do anything, like we, yeah, and it's always been a thing of, you can try to tell why, but you really gotta hire an attorney if at all. We just have people that just can't, and that's always been another. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Yeah, so we're putting that together. Oh my gosh, I'd love to learn more about that. Yeah, so we would love to, like, that comes up so, we get it all the time, yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, that's a good idea.
Sorry, that's not. See one of those people. They just have. Yeah, you got it. No. But I did. Yeah.
That happens. It happens. Especially now. I couldn't bring myself. I started it, like I can't do it. I can't do it for myself. Oh, oh no. That's just probably, yeah, yeah. Huh?
Where's the bathroom? Left or
Oh,
right?
yes, so left and across from the elevators, and there's a code 23, yes. All right.
I will not do it. Yeah, there you go.
Right. All right, I think we have most of us back in the room, right? Yeah, so we'll get moving along just to get you guys going. We're in the final stretch. Just gonna do a little ethics here, get you those ethics credits. I just wanted to point out in your package, you do have the CLE evaluation. If you could please complete that and just leave it on the table, leave it over here, wherever, we'll collect them. Bar Association's gonna yell at me if I don't collect them, so I'll make sure that, you know, they appreciate your input. And we anticipate, as you have heard, this clinic has been very popular, and we're hoping to continue to do trainings and everything. And so any feedback you have about the trainings, what we can add to it, we would certainly like to hear that. One of the things also too in your packet is the actual flyer for this Help Center clinic that we've been talking about. As we've been saying, my colleague Pauline, she's at the courthouse. We are here, Volunteer Lawyers Project, for you. If you go, you know, volunteer for the clinic, questions come up, not sure what to do next, this person needs more help, handle it, whatever it may be, please reach out to us anytime, directly to Pauline, myself. All our information is within the PowerPoints and on these forms. We're happy to help guide you through the volunteer process, because I know questions come up and we work out some of the kinks as we move along, and this is kind of a newer clinic we have going here. So we welcome feedback and all of that good stuff as we move along. There's a few other resources in your packet, which I'll bring up as I get into the ethics. A lot of this, I think many of you are probably familiar with. Overall, when we think of ethics and pro bono work, there are two main things we kind of think of with work with these clinics. Limited scope rules and diminished capacity are some of the things we like to think about here. So limited scope, what I'm going to start with. So a lawyer may limit scope of representation under reasonable circumstances, like our clinic here, with clients understanding that this is a limited service and that, you know, the courts and everything understand that we're providing a limited service, that you're not the retained attorney per se, but you're helping with this limited scope process. So examples of the formats of limited scope, pro bono clinics. So like this one, established usually by legal services, courts, to provide short-term limited legal services with no expectation of continued, right, retained attorney expectations. Assisting clients with completions of legal forms when they file pro se. We do that a lot with our family court clinic, many of you might have heard about. Legal advice hotlines. We have that. We have a tell-all line where we provide advice and counsel to folks that call into that phone number, and limited court appearances. We have a very busy landlord-tenant program where attorneys can volunteer for summary judgment proceedings in landlord-tenant court for that limited representation without being the ongoing retained attorney for that. So those are kind of your main limited scope pro bono that you could do. And we kind of take advantage of every kind of way you could do pro bono at VLP, if at all possible. So we've heard the benefits. Just really quick again, community increasing access to affordable legal assistance. I mean, there is, as we've seen with this, there was no other service before this. So it's hard to believe once you get a program started and you have a line of people and all the volunteers to believe that just a few months ago, we didn't even have that program altogether. And that has been the case in so many of our different programs. We have a family court clinic that takes place on that Wednesday that Pauline had mentioned every Wednesday as well. We used to have, you know, morning, afternoon, maybe 6 clients in the morning, 6 in the afternoon. I mean, that's a good amount to sit there and meet with clients and help with all the paperwork. We are now at, I think one of the last clinics, maybe 28. 30, yes, because we have streamlined the process. What can we do with support staff? What can we do? We were talking about bringing in interns that can help fill out paperwork as we move along. So that's why I say, if you find when you're volunteering for this clinic, hey, if I just had help with this, you know, somebody on the side, a student or some support staff can start filling this out while I am discussing with the client next steps and providing legal advice, we welcome that because we're trying to, as we move along, streamline as best as possible. Pro bono attorneys, a great way to just do pro bono without taking on a full case beginning to end. You can provide that volunteer time, and maybe it's just, we'll take it. 4 times a year, you donate that like 2 hours. Makes a huge difference to the clients. I mean, and with the family court clinic, I mean, that is hundreds for your couple hours of volunteering. And I imagine it might get to that level at one point, but even with this clinic and the amount we serve, I mean, we're talking dozens and dozens of people that you can help with just volunteering, maybe 4 times a year, even less. We'll take it. We understand everybody's schedule, but we will work around what we can get. And for the courts, hopefully, I think it is helpful, right? The pile of, I know I've heard in the past, like you have all been saying, there are just pro se litigants that will just keep filing and they just can't figure out what is wrong with it. And it's very frustrating. Bounce back. They have a genuine case and they just can't get it in front of the court because we're just missing that necessary information. So this is a big part of how we can help in that process. So those are model rules of professional conduct. That's what's going to oversee most of your ethical issues. So always, there's 3 main ones that we consider all the time with pro bono work. Competency, of course, this is with any legal attorney-client relationship that you have, having knowledge, because you went to a training like this, you are competent to volunteer for it. That we're sure we make that one crossed off checked, you're here. 2, as always, rule 1.1, this is never your case, right? It's the client's case still. This is pro bono, right? But this is still, we are treating every client as if they are your private practice client, your individual ongoing representation client. Same sort of rules of professional conduct apply for even that sort of relationship. Third, the general rules of conflict. I'm sure these that come up to your mind, especially those of you who are private practice at law firms and everything. You cannot, represent if it's your own conflict, if it's a former client that's appearing in front of you and you have actual knowledge of things, imputed interest, not knowing representation of anybody else in the firm that has a conflict. But I say all this, but with limited representation, it's different. So with this clinic, it's a little bit different in terms of the ethical rules that apply. So when we look at Rule 6.1, services that, and this is also delved out a little bit more in Ethics Opinion 1012, and you have copies of those in your packets. Services of legal advice or representation that are free of charge, like this service, that where there is a part of a program like a not-for-profit like ourselves, like Volunteer Lawyers Project, and no expectation that ongoing assistance will continue beyond that initial consult, representation limited, or a limited court appearance. These rules of conflict are relaxed. And they come down to whether there's actual knowledge of a conflict. So did that person in front of you know that this is a conflict? You recognize that client or their case that's sitting in front of you at the clinic. That's all that's required for conflict. So when I say that, also with anybody participating in that there's no expectation of continued beyond limited consult, that the client has informed consent. So you will see when you have the client, we do have an intake and they do sign off on this. It's a limited scope. They understand that you are not their represented attorney moving forward, but you're going to help them in this clinic environment. And again, the conflict does not arise unless you have that actual knowledge. So in Ethics Opinion 1012, what that means is that you don't need to do conflict checks with your firm before volunteer or before you're able to give advice during that advice that you give during the clinic. And that you don't have to check your system. Now, I will say with your firms, do check what their policies are, of course, because individual law firms may have further policies, but in terms of what we have at ours and what you are ethically able to do, unless you have actual knowledge that it's a conflict, you are covered with that one-time consult that you're providing through the clinic. And of course, you're continuing, as always with any attorney-client relationship, continuing to remain confidential with their information. And after the representation is completed, after that, any sort of, if you find out, oh yes, wait a minute, I look back at my firm and we have a very material adverse client here, I can no longer assist. But usually that's not an issue. It's not imputed on your other colleagues. So for example, we have a surrogates court clinic, right? And we had one party reach out to us for advice. And they received advice from our volunteer attorney from a specific firm, of actually Barclay David, right? And they got the limited advice, moved on, no longer needs any help. A few weeks later, opposing party reached out to attend the surrogates court clinic. The other attorney from that, Barclay Damon, was a volunteer, but has the relationship was done at there. They have no information about that client, about that service. The previous client was not getting any more ongoing service from the other attorney, so that there is not a conflict imputed on them. So they can also get advice. And that's crucial because you do get where both parties really need advice, right? In an action, right? So it's hard to, we do, and sometimes we have to pick one, right? Because we do have a volunteer that's continuing, or for some reason our Volunteer Lawyers Project is continuing in our relationship with them. But for the most part, we want to be able to help both parties navigate the situation. So it's very clearly acknowledged by New York model rules. So, if you have any questions about that, if you come up with a conundrum like that, always reach out to us. I will say on our board, we have Mary Gasparini from Attorney General's and the Grievance Committee. She is very knowledgeable, always happy to ask questions, very, she would welcome me to shout her name out. But we get that sometimes we get some really confusing kind of ethical questions, and we will help you get those answered. So anytime that comes up, let us know. Yeah. Yes. Yes, that's exactly it. And she wants to, really. She is really a great resource. So even beyond this, as part of our VLP like family, if you have other issues that you need to connect with her, let us know and we'll make that connection for that. Okay, so that's overall. For any questions about conflict or, pro bono? Great. So I will move on to diminished capacity. So like any sort of relationship, right? When you meet a client or anything like that, if it's an adult that doesn't have some sort of guardianship or anything like that, they're able to make legal decisions, how fill out this paper or whatnot. That's just kind of the standard, right? The legal system does recognize some specific situations like testamentary, when I say that, like wills and things like that, where we have more requirements, right? For witnesses to sign, things like that, powers of attorney. Now we have the 2 witnesses and a notary requirement, right? There are certain situations where some more demonstration of capacity is required. But in general, right, if somebody's approaching you for the clinic and they seem to be a sound-minded adult, they are able to make, the next step decisions and what happens in their case and the next steps. And whether they take your advice or not, when moving forward with that. If there is a question, though, of capacity that you're finding when you're meeting with folks through the clinic. Some of the things that are suggested are things like, is the client able to articulate the reasoning why they're even there, right? What is the end goal of why I'm here and what I'm filing, right? Are they able to do that? Are they able to appreciate what they're agreeing to and the consequences of their filings and things like that, what could happen? And consistency in their decision. Does it make sense what they are filing and what they are doing at this point? Does that make sense for their end goal, right? Maybe not for, yes, like that incident that happened in 1990 and we're here in 2024. Are we going to get to that end goal while we're here, right? And just considering those things. With that, we have our, we consider this our conventional lawyer client relationship. We're still going to treat that person with respect and not diminish our obligation to them as an attorney that's providing advice. And so we can't take kind of protective actions and like reaching out, right, to parties that we don't have entitlement to reach out to. But sometimes we can say to, like, let's say volunteer us. I had a client today. They're really in need of some hand holding. And maybe we can do this in a, just a suggestive matter. Hey, there are resources for you. There are social work programs. There are these programs that can help get you support without intruding on their, entitlement as a client. But we're here to help. And we do have that, right? Where we can only handhold so much. And how can we know other resources out there that can help folks get through this process? Let's see if we can do that. And so we have other resources. We work a lot with our other social work teams and things like that in the community to help. And as you see those come along in a very limited capacity, passing those inquiries along, and we can see if we can help. So a lawyer's duty, just a little quote here, but really it's just about having a heightened sense of awareness of a client's needs, okay? And ensuring effective communication as best you can. I understand that it can be difficult with folks that do seem to have diminished capacity, but that our duty is to do that as diligently as possible as we can. So some advice for this. And some of this might seem like, common sense, but it's things to think about as we're meeting with clients is, especially with diminished capacity, is to speak clearly and slowly and keep it short and to the point. Getting a whole bunch of legal information, getting that big packet and everything has been an overwhelming process. And we are here to delve into what's important, what I need from you, and what advice you need from me to get this moving along and get these finished. And so we're trying to always be patient, we're gonna have to repeat information, right? I mean, it's a lot of information for our clients to take in, right? So just being patient, mindful of that, personalizing your communication, that, you know, not just talking away, but really addressing the person who's in front of you, and that you're there to help them with their issue that's in front of us today. And you will get clients that like to vent a little bit, and I know private practice, public interest, whatever it is, we've all come across that, right? In the courts, you've run across people, just making sure that, hey, I'm here, I'm gonna do what I can do to help you. We're gonna get it so that you are empowered to move forward with this action, and here's how we're gonna do it. And just being reassuring that way. And we do have people that get pretty upset, sometimes, and because they filed 10 times and now I've made it to this clinic. What do I need to do? Because this is really getting me like revved up, and just be like, listen, I have to ask these questions because opposing counsel is going to ask these questions. The court is going to ask these questions. Again, I'm here to help you. Let's get this done. Here's what we need to talk about in our limited time that we have together. And it's always empathy is always, crucial. That's true for any of your clients, I'm sure, but especially in this, these are folks that are not able to get legal assistance anywhere else. They cannot afford an attorney. There is not another program that's going to help them. So this is where they're at. So really, they're going through, unfortunately, as many of us know, most of the time when people are coming to lawyers, unfortunately, it's not like a good thing. Like, it's not like everything's great in life, right? We're coming here because I got a problem, or probably like a big problem, and I need some help. And so we're trying to be empathetic about that and just acknowledge people. I hear what you're saying. I know, it sounds like your feelings are this. Don't say do not understand. You can't help it sometimes, but like, I understand, but we're not in the same similar situation as a lot of parties that are coming to you, clients that are coming to you. But you do your best to be like, I hear what you're telling me, or I can tell that this is what's going on. I had in my early days, and this is my 10th year with VLP actually. And in my early days, I had one client on the phone who was very frustrated. And one of my things was, okay, what's your name? And she said her name. I said, okay. Well, that okay was a trigger. It's not okay. I'm going through all of this. Don't you understand? It's not okay. And then I got stuck in the okays. I couldn't get out of it, right? Because I would say, hey, what's your address? Okay. And I was like, oh no, I said okay. And then she'd go again, right? And so it was, yeah. So the fun of, practical practice and, all of that good stuff. Because I didn't know it wasn't okay, and I get it, and that was a trigger word for her, and just trying to be respectful of all of that. And I get that these can be frustrating situations. I know that we had an example here of folks that come in with piles of paper, and you're just like, I can only do so much in this setting. So we have talked about too. I think we are going to. I know it's been mentioned here. Expand some of this. Streamline some of this, because we do get it. I mean, you can only do so much. If somebody's coming to you with a pile of papers, we don't expect you to be able to solve their case that day. And so we're trying to streamline how we can best collect that, use some support staff, maybe students, to help kind of dig in there. And that way your time as attorneys is best used to provide that. So we have a couple more minutes. The only other things I didn't include it in here. One thing I did think about was solicitation issues for any of you that are private practitioners. No need to, what I always say with that is, of course, if they say to you, hey, I really like, you seem to know what you're talking about, can I hire you? That's fine. You can provide your information, say, okay. If you were telling them, you really need an attorney, you leave it general. Like, my firm does it, but also reach out to what I usually say, VLP usually says, the Bar Association's lawyer referral. That keeps you from being any sort of referral to any certain legal law firm. Do the Bar Association's number and just say, hey, this is the Bar Association. They have a list of attorneys that you could contact that specialize in certain areas of the law. You're welcome to do that. And also to, our practice does it, but not being like, yeah, you should definitely hire me for your, what's going on, because I can tell you and I'll do a great job for you and all of that, right? So just keeping that in mind. But I think that was really overall everything. Again, this opinion, if you're worried at all about figuring out, conflict or diminished capacity, really goes into it pretty nicely. PowerPoints are in there. If you have, as I said, we're recording this. If you have colleagues that were not able to be here today, please let them know to contact us. We will figure out another way to get them the training because we really want to get more volunteers signed up for this as quickly as we can. So send them our way. We will figure out how to get them trained up so they can volunteer too. Great. Any questions? Ethics wise or anything? Yeah. Yes. And thank you. I was saying to the presenters as well, thank you for being here because I think I know I feel this way, but seeing their faces and seeing who you're trying to keep it right is super helpful. So we appreciate all of you coming today and presenting. And now I can put a name to the emails and the face, and the faces to that. So that's been great. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. If there's no further questions, please do. If you haven't done it already, please fill this one out and just leave it there at where you were sitting. There, if you already registered for this before, we do have your CLE certifications there. They're in alphabetical order over here. If you did not, I will get those to the Bar Association and they will email you your certification. Do make sure to sign out. And please take any extra snacks, water with you. It's less stuff that we have to lug back up to the office. So please take it with you. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
That's-